You destroyed my people. My family. Little Skew. This ends now.
Okay, what's up guys? I'm fucking sad because I just recorded this whole voiceover and then I realized I wasn't recording. I don't know why, but I have to do this all over again. I'll try to remember, and I think I might be more organized this time, so yeah, let's begin. So this is Elamak, a joke champion that I made for April Fools. She's a spin-off of like Camille. It's Camille spelled backwards if you didn't notice, so some of y'all didn't get that. But yeah, you know, I mean, I get it. Some of you don't celebrate April Fools, so I understand. I'll just go into my process. So I started with not line art. I started with the sketch, and I guess I liked my sketch immediately because I didn't really do much after the first sketch, but I wanted something that had like some perspective. I'm not the best at perspective, but you know, I wanted something to give it a little special, considering it was just a pair of scissors, and I didn't want it just to be a pair of fucking scissors, like a boring ass pair of scissors, you know what I'm saying? So I knew I wanted a dynamic pose for the scissors, as dynamic as I could do it. And then I didn't do clean line art because I knew the shapes were simple. There was not really much detail either in the shapes. There was like, honestly, like 6 layers maybe max that I had to do to separate everything into layers with a solid fill shape. I hope that makes sense to you guys. Like when you take a paint, like a whatever tool you want to use, really just use 100% opacity and just fill in the shape, you know, into separate layers, so everything's into separate layers and you can keep your work nice and clean. So yeah, I did that, and then after that I'll go in and decide kind of like my lighting and my colors. So how I'll do that is I'll put like a general color, and I know there's going to be a wash depending on the background, so there's a blue wash because it's in the sky, and then I'll kind of just play around with the curves and the saturation and the hue crap to kind of just figure out like what colors I like, the brightness and the darkness that I want, and the kind of environment I'm going for. And once I decide that, then I start rendering. But something that's kind of important is understanding like what background your character's in. So painting is like all about context. If you don't give your character or whatever any context, aka the background, the environment, you don't really know what the hell you're doing, and it's kind of messy. So what I do eventually, like I draw a general background with like some buildings, even though they're just like rough marks. Eventually I just go grab a Google image and just throw it into my thing just so I can see what it's gonna look like. Eventually I just paint over it and it's not there. There's still like a visible parts, hardly though. I basically paint over the whole thing with like a different thing, so I promise I'm not cheating. I promise I just use it to like quickly get a sense of where my character is. And then after that, I said I begin rendering, right? So I start rendering, and I knew for this piece specifically I wanted the metal to look a certain way, to be a certain type of metal, because with metal, so a big part of this piece is obviously metal because it's just a big pair of fucking scissors. So I'll explain a little bit on how I render metal and how you might include some of these things to help you render metal if you're struggling with metal, obviously. So the first thing I do is obviously you get like a base color. What's the base color of the metal? And then you have to decide early on what's the texture. Is it reflective? Is it grainy? Is it smooth? So if you know it's super reflective, then you're gonna take your background. Your environment matters a lot when you're painting metal. You're gonna take your environment's color and the light, and you're gonna paint it over your metal, taking a airbrush tool and getting a general sense of the lighting. So I'll take the light's color and brightness. So usually it'll be almost white. In this case it was like a bright teal, and I'll just do like a light pass over sort of to get a sense of the direction of the lighting and just, you know, the general lighting hitting, so something's illuminating the object. And then I go in and I do the reflective things. So if your piece is really reflective, it might be almost exactly the same color and brightness as the background, and if there's objects around it, you'll want to reflect those onto it too. If it's not super reflective, maybe you'll just do another slight light gradient to signify that it's reflecting something in the background. Mine wasn't, I didn't want this pair of scissors to be very reflective. I wanted it to be on the grainier side and a little less reflective, but I also didn't want it to be completely dull. And then the last thing, well, I guess there's two more things. You add your shadows and your highlights. You add your something occlusion, whatever. The shadows where light doesn't meet at all, so you just go with a dark ass line. And then a little tip for y'all: if you do the other stuff that I mentioned, and you feel like you don't know what you're doing, at least know this: your highlights, the edges of metal will catch light more. They're better at catching the light. So if you add a nice highlight on the edges where two edges meet on metal, it'll look a lot more like metal. So, and also remember, the highlights are not saturated. What's around the highlight is. So yeah, like the midtone, but it's not really a midtone. Moving on, one thing that I struggled with, especially, you can tell I painted over and over, is the engravings. I knew I wanted engravings because it's just scissors, so I knew I wanted something to kind of give it more detail, more character, something more interesting to look at. So I wanted to add like little engravings, like kind of antique scissors or something, even though, do people ever engrave scissors? I don't know. But yeah, I was trying to do engravings and they were too big, or they looked too like stark. I don't know. But eventually I did get to something that I did like. It wasn't exactly like I had in my head. I don't have the skill for that, I guess, or the knowledge, but I do like how it ended up looking. So there's that. So after I done that, the rendering, which is what I said: fill, use airbrush to get a general sense of the lighting, then add shadows, or you can do shadows before, but usually you want the lighting and then shadows and then highlights. That's what I do. And then I'll go into the background, and then I'll add texture, and then I'll start to blur things that shouldn't be in focus, like the shear, or like the blade that was in the back. I kind of wanted to blur that a little bit and blur anything that wasn't in the focus. And I also like to add grain, or I think on most things it's called noise, just so it doesn't look so digital, I guess, like so smooth. I don't like that look about digital. This is Illimac. She's a pair of fucking scissors. I decided to do this on April Fool's Day, so I knew way prior that I was gonna do something for April Fool's, something similar to this. I didn't know what, but I had tweeted before, what if I just put Riot in front of my name? Who's gonna stop me? And then some writers were like, I see you, bitch, I'll stop you. But they can't do shit, honestly. Report me, I guess. Get banned from Twitter. But anyways, so, and then another artist, Bikami, I think, from Twitter, was like, oh, we should do this for April Fool's, but put Rito instead of Riot, which, that was clever, because some people, even with Rito in front of my name, really thought I was working at Riot, and I feel so bad for them, because then I made a joke tweet that said, oh, they fired my ass and pulled Illimac off the PBD, and somebody sent me a message saying, oh, why'd they fire you? I'm sorry. And I'm like, they didn't fire me, I'm just a clown. And I still have that position full time. So anyways, I made the concept that morning. I just woke up and I was like, I'm gonna fucking draw a pair of scissors. It's gonna be a joke. And I drew like a ton of different things, and I was like, oh, here's an insight, or like a preview of our new champion, Illimac. And then I kind of wanted to see what people thought of it, and I drew a quick messy ass concept, but it looks kind of legit, so I was like, nice, and I move on. A lot of people found it amusing, so then I was like, what, okay, let's do a splash art for this shit. I wanted to do a splash art, an illustration for this, because I knew I wanted to practice using Procreate. So I'm pretty new to Procreate and my iPad in general, especially drawing full-blown illustrations. Like, I've done like sketches and just portraits, or just like a body, but I never tried to do like an illustration, with like everything, all the fucking magic. So I said, let's try it. It's a good challenge. I've been kind of testing it with Procreate and like trying shit out, And yeah, so this was really like me testing the waters, getting some practice in using the app and my iPad. And so yeah, that's why I did this. And that's everything. Thanks for watching. I hope you like this piece, and I hope you love Elamak, even though she was pulled off the PvE and she's a flop. Yeah, I hope you like this, and if you like my painting and you like me, or if you like my painting, or you like me, or you like both, consider following me on social media or subscribing to my YouTube channel. You know, this might be the only time I actually post shit since we're in quarantine and I can't really do anything but schoolwork, and of course I'm not gonna do that. I hate school. So yeah, I hope you guys have a good day. I hope you guys are doing great, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.